My name is Randy Rubenstein, and welcome to the Mastermind Parenting Podcast. At Mastermind Parenting, we're on a mission to support strong-willed kids and the families that love them. Okay, I'm sitting here with Michaeleen, virtually sitting here with Michaeleen, and we were just chatting, meeting each other for the first time, and I was telling her that I'm going to try not to super fangirl over her, but I am such a super fan. And the way I want to start off this conversation is that I haven't read a parenting book in a long time because now I'm kind of the person who's teaching the things, right? And I read parenting books for so many years that it's like I finally realized I couldn't find exactly the recipe. So I just I kind of created something the way I cook where God forbid I should just have one recipe. And so I have to mix a little of this and a little of that and created my own parenting method, Mastermind Parenting. And then I heard you, I think it was right after you wrote the book. I heard you on a podcast interview. I want to say maybe it was like The Broken Brain or were you on that
Something
podcast?
Like that. Yeah, I think so. Mm-hmm.
Yeah. And so I heard you and it was so compelling what you had to say that I went and I bought this and I didn't even buy Hunt Gather Parent. Hunt Gather Parent is now I'm telling every parent it is required reading. I didn't even buy it to go as a supplement to my group or I bought it to read for fun.
Oh, that's great.
Okay. I bought it to read for fun. I have parenting programs. I have a podcast. I teach these things. My kids two of them are sort of grown and flown. I'm now, if I'm reading things, I'm reading either great fiction books or business books. Yeah. So I bought it to read for fun. I can't even tell you. It's not even I have downright scribble scrabble notes all over it. And then I became so obsessed about it that I started making videos for my group just based on the things that I was learning from you. And so then they all were intrigued and they were like, well, can we do this as a book club selection? And so I said, yeah, we can do this as a book club selection. So then we did it as a book club selection, but I reached out to your people because I was like, okay, there's so much in here. Do you have anything? Because I kind of feel like I need to teach a workshop about it because they're, and you guys were like, no, we really don't. So then I had to study it because my people, once they started reading it, they were also obsessed that they were like, okay, we want you to go more into this and more into that.
Yeah.
So then I created a whole workshop. Now, Hunt Gather Parent has become a verb in Mastermind Parenting.
That's fantastic.
Yes, it's become a verb. I'm telling y'all, I couldn't help myself. I have to fangirl. It's become a verb because what I constantly am helping the parents in my community realize is, guess what? Put the people to work and stop being so kid-centric and spending your entire weekends doing nothing for yourself.
Yeah.
You've got this list of chores and things to do. And if you lead them, I call it pack leadership. That's how I sort of.
That's good. I'm writing that down.
There's so much alignment in what you wrote and with my method and what I teach that I'll say okay, you're going to have to Hunt Gather Parent this shit. Enough already.
That is great. I mean, the pack is so great, right? Because kids love that. Kids want to be in a pack. They do, right? You think even in the US, not that long ago, kids roam around the town in packs, right? Multiple age groups and the little ones looking up to the medium ones and the mediums ones, so it is that's the perfect mentality. That's their mentality all the way. I love it.
And I think, it's we are pack animals. We are meant to be in community and be in tribes. And I think that's the part that I just loved so much that you were writing this as a journalist.
Yeah.
I liked that you were just oh, I mean, go a little bit more into it for everyone, because I have so many questions. Like, you work for NBR and you went on assignment. And when you went to, on your assignment to research these different indigenous cultures, you started realizing that like they had their shit together way more than we do as parents. Is that basically what happened?
I mean, so in the book, I start off when I go down to the Yucatan, to the little Maya village. And that's where like my eyes like really opened and were like, what you just said, like, holy shit, like this parenting is way better than our parenting. There's just no question. Like, you can criticize me as much as you want, but if you go and down there, you will see. And I mean, there's a lot of research too. But actually, before that, I had been up in the Arctic a few times, and I had been to West Africa, and I had seen it, and I had like, but it wasn't super conscious. It was like I came back from those trips being like, I think something's going on. Like, especially I went up to Alaska, and I talked to a bunch of parents, and I was just really like, what's going on? Why are their lives so much easier when it comes to children? Every culture has problems and issues, but dealing with children just wasn't one of them. And so yeah, like I just kind of started noticing it. And then when I went to the Yucatan, that was when I was like, okay, this is real. And these moms have these skills and this knowledge that my culture just hasn't given me. And it was the first time I felt really excited as a parent, like really hopeful, like, oh, wait a second, there's this whole, set of knowledge that maybe if I learned, I could enjoy this thing. I could have a really loving relationship with my daughter. I love her, but like our relationship was so full of conflict and strife, right? But like, maybe if I learned these tools from other cultures and communities, that, it could really improve my relationship with her, and I could enjoy being with her, which I really had never really done in her 2.5 years of existence, which is horrible to say, but it's the truth.
Well, you're a truth teller, and I appreciate that about you. And I appreciate that. And, I think that so many of us, like I said this somewhere recently, where I said, you love your kids, but when they are acting like terrorists and dictators, like, how on earth could you possibly like someone who's behaving that way?
Yeah. Yeah. Right? And just the stress of it, like, there was just, my whole body was like tense around her, because it was like, when is this thing going to explode on me and do things that I can't help, I can't fix, and I knew that she didn't enjoy having a tantrum. She didn't enjoy the state she was getting in, yelling and screaming at me. And yet I felt so helpless to fix it and like do something. And so, yeah, it was completely stress ridden. Like I say in the book, I would sit in bed in the mornings and just kind of strategize about what I'm going to do when she wakes up and gets angry. But also dreading it, really dreading it. And I have to say, the book is not an exaggeration. And even my sister-in-law said to me, wow, you've really gotten better, Mike. Like, it really, the knowledge that mostly women, some men gave me, it really transformed our lives and our relationship. And that's why I wrote the book, because I was just like, I think this could really help. This could really help people, like, genuinely.
Well, I mean, I love the way, look, the book validated me in a lot of ways. And because I've been trying to reverse engineer this certain recipe, basically also had a strong-willed kid when he was about 3, realized like, I got to do something different.
Yeah.
I thought this was going to be more enjoyable. And just somewhere I knew, I think innately, I don't think I could have put words to it, but I think I was like, if he doesn't become more enjoyable, then he's not going to feel enjoyed.
Yes. Yes.
Right. And so there was like a
absolutely.
guilt, like if I'm faking it, and if I'm just like through gritted teeth trying to make it through the day, but not actually enjoying him, like he's going to suffer. Like he's going to grow up not being a celebrated, enjoyed human.
Yeah.
And so that was like a tremendous amount of guilt for me. And I
Yeah.
knew I had to figure it out. I knew something wasn't adding up. And that's why I like to say to people who we say strong-willed kids, which
Yeah.
the
Yeah.
truth of the matter is all humans can
Yeah.
display a
Yeah.
strong will when they act on the outside the way they're feeling on the inside. So it's
Yeah.
like there's something to figure out. And so but strong-willed kids, I always say, are like our canaries in the coal mine. Like they're trying to alert us that there's something that's dangerous and not working.
That's right.
And they're calling
right.
us, and they're calling us to more, they're calling us to figure this out because it's not working. And I'm just not going to wait until I'm a teenager to rebel. I'm going to start doing it right now.
Right. I say that it's like Rosy was like, my daughter Rosy, she was like forcing me to find a better way. She really was. She would, you're right. She's like a truth sayer. She's like, we say strong will, but I don't think a lot of cultures would put it that way. I think it's like enthusiastic and determined. I mean, in an adult, we want strong-willed, right? We want our kids to go after it and be persistent. But in our toddlers, we're like afraid of it. And I've been trying, I think it's a great quality. And I think I'm so thankful to her, because if she was an easier kid, like I would have never, written this book. I would have never found this better way. And yet, my life is better, not just with Rosy. I say this a lot, but with my husband, my mom. I'm working on that relationship. I'm trying really hard. That one's harder. But at work, like all of the things that are in the book, learning to cooperate, reducing conflict, seeing people, like really seeing their contributions and what they're trying to do, that has made me such a happier person and such a less angry person. And so it's really because of Rosy being strong-willed, as you say, so.
Okay. So if you had to say, what do you think the main shift that happened within you is?
Yeah. I think there's a couple of things. I think number one is I really like the Inuit parents really taught me that children are these incredibly loving, empathetic creatures. They're just like irrational, illogical, and clumsy and have no clue how to behave. So every time Rosy was getting really upset at me, hitting me, biting me, I mean, really extreme things, I was so angry at her, like just so angry and so like full of wanting to lash out at her because I felt attacked, right? I felt like she was attacking me and hated me and pushing buttons and manipulating me and all these things that our culture assumes young children are. The Inuit parents really told me, like, that's BS, Michaeleen. Like, she's a baby. She doesn't know what she's doing. And you just have to show her. And if you assume she's doing all these bad things, you're going to just come at her in this way that creates conflict and you're going to be angry at her. But if you come at her, it's like, she's trying. She wants to love me. She wants to do what's right. She just doesn't know how. Then you're going to have so much more sympathy for her and be so much more gentle with her. And once I started, that shift in me happened, oh my God, Rosy's behavior got so much better. It was incredible. Like she was just responding to me being angry. And, she would have a tantrum and then I would get kind of in a tantrum myself, right? And when I stopped doing that and became calm, and I would just say to Matt, my husband, like, she doesn't understand. That's what often the parents would say. She doesn't understand. She doesn't know. She's trying. And I would just say it. And she'd be sitting there like hitting me and like screaming at us. And I'd be like, she doesn't understand. When she started to see that I wasn't going to get angry at her anymore, she started calming down. It was really incredible. It was really fast, but it took me time to change, right?
Well, I just want to now translate everything you just said. This is why it was so validating. Okay. So I teach a tool called the Q-tip, quit taking it personally. So you just modeled that. Like we make we define children's behavior with adult meaning, and it's just not fair. All right.
Yes,
and so these ancient, mostly women, some men taught you, hey, you think that you're studying, for a math test, but you have an English book out. Like it
Right,
doesn't even
right,
like, it's not going to work here. Like you're
right.
like her behavior, she does not understand. She's just learning how to be alive.
That's
And
right.
so you've got to quit taking this personally. Kids are another thing that I say a lot. Like kids can't be responsible for adult emotions.
That's so right, right?
Right.
Exactly. That's what somebody told me after the book came out. They said, we think we have a shared reality with them, right? We think our reality is their reality, but they are just like in a totally different reality, and we can't put that on them, right? And having those words of like they're illogical, they're irrational, which is totally true, helped me be able to say. And the other thing is, they would always, a lot of the parents would say, you got to expect them to misbehave. You
Yeah.
expect them to be crazy. You expect them to hit because they are these, irrational creatures. And if you're setting yourself up for them not to do that, you're just setting up for conflict. You're to be angry and right. And so it was like expecting bad behavior, and then really, really believing that she's trying. She is trying. And no, it doesn't seem that way, but she is trying her best. A couple weeks ago, we were in the post office, and she's starting to learn to write. She's 6 now, and she wanted to write all of the address all the envelopes, right? And it was just a hot mess, right? It was just like, these huge letters, and we were running out of time, and it was just, I was getting, and I lashed out at her, and I was like, let me just do it, and just like my dad would do, right? Like pulled it from her hands, and everything I don't want to do, right?
Mm-hmm.
And I got in the car with her, and I was like, you know what, Rosy, I'm really sorry I did that. I shouldn't, I just owned up to it. I was like, which my dad would never do. But, and I just like, I'm sorry, I shouldn't have done that. I shouldn't have, taken that away from you and gotten angry. And she just said to me in like the sweetest little voice, she's like, it's okay, mama, but I was just trying. I was like, and that's it. That is, she just told me she was just trying. And she's when she was 2 or 3, she was trying, and she just, she had no clue how to handle, like you said, adult emotions, these big emotions and these situations. And so I really try to think that even with my husband, even with my mom, I just try to think we're both trying. We're both trying, our hardest,
right.
and it doesn't always come out right.
I think a lot of what you have described is, it's like, if you allow parenting, if we stop like resisting it being hard, and we accept and lean in, and it sounds like that ancient wisdom from the people who still, who are modern societies, but they still hold on to a lot of the hunter-gatherer rituals from, yesteryear.
Yeah. And they
it,
value the parenting knowledge from the past, which I think is so important, right? They value these tools that have worked for centuries, thousands of years. And like, why not keep those tools, right? Like,
well, it's like, yeah, like I feel like you're like, yeah, I went to all these ancient cultures, and they helped me realize where we were throwing the baby out with the bathwater.
Yes, exactly. Exactly.
Yeah. I was gonna say that, when we allow parenting to be hard, or to realize like kids are not meant to be obedient,
That's right.
they're just meant to be humans that get to be fully expressed and alive, and we're teaching them, like they're
That's
learning
right.
how to be alive, and we're teaching them the rules of our pack, the rules of our tribe, right? And so
Right.
we learn. If you think back in your life, like when did you have the most impactful experiences? It usually is when something was really hard, or you made a mistake and you had to recover, and you had to figure it out, and you had to problem solve. And so we learn through mistakes.
Yeah.
And
Absolutely.
if we allow parenting to, serve in this way, it really becomes the ultimate personal development program for
It
all
really
of us,
is.
right?
It really is. But, we're also then modeling that for them, right? When Rosy lashes out at me and gets angry, or a friend or a dad, she's seen like, how do you handle that? Oh, you own up to it, and you say, I'm sorry, and I didn't mean to. And like, right. It becomes like this beautiful kind of sharing of mistakes, right? And sharing of how you handle the mistakes. And Corinna Kramer, she's a Inuit woman in Alaska. She told me this. She's like, anytime I get upset, I get angry. She's like, I just sit down and I just tell them like, I didn't handle that right. I'm sorry. And like, I'll ask them like, what could I have done better? All right. So it's this very like two-way sharing of information and two-way learning, right? Which there's a piece in the book about that, right? The information just doesn't come from the parent to the child in many societies. The children are sources of knowledge and information. And the wonderfulness of that is the child feels so proud, right? When they've taught their mom something and they've like contributed, right? Like that's, that you can't have a bigger motivating force and connecting force with a child than having them feel like they've contributed to you and your life.
Oh, 100%, because then they get to be a valuable member of the pack.
That's right. I love this pack. Oh my God. Yeah. We might have to write something with this, and I will credit you absolutely. Because I love this idea, because that's exactly what we are. We are pack animals, and children they just want that. They want that. That's comfortable to them, right? To have all these people around and
think about the natural dopamine hits you get when even if you think about, a work team or a volunteer team, and when people are like, oh, let Michaeleen handle, the coordinating of the people, because she's so good with people and she always just puts all the right people together. And you're like, right. I do? You see me? Like it feels so good to have other people see you and allow you to bring value. And you get those natural dopamine hits from that. And so I think when we allow our kids to teach us things, like that's such a confidence builder for them too.
So big, right? Like, yeah, sometimes I listen to tape from when we were in the little Yucatan village. There's so much hidden gems in there. And in one of the pieces of tape, one of the moms is saying how the family looks to the 6-year-old to get the homework done, because the little 6-year-old comes home and does her homework right away. And she's like, so we look to her. She's our guide. And it's just so beautiful, right? That like, here's a family of 5 kids from 16 to 6. And the mom is, propping the 6-year-old up as this guide and this like helper with the homework. And I think about that often, like, how is Rosy our guide? And, how's my husband our guide? And in giving that power to them, I don't know.
She's your guide. I can say that Rosy's been everything that you just described, like in terms of like it impacting your marriage, the skills that you've learned by being Rosy's mother, and it's impacting, your other relationships. She really, she helped you to learn true empathy, because when you're seeing all these other people's perspectives, which is like everyone's doing the best that they can, and we have to get curious about what's really going on for them. And that's how we Q-tip. That's how we quit taking it personally. But it's all empathy. It's emotional intelligence.
That's right. It is. You're exactly right. Seeing other person's side, being in their shoes, and also just kind of having a much more pro-social, as psychologists would say, but just a better, nicer view of children and other people's motivations, right? Instead of constantly thinking that they have some nefarious motivation and they're out to get me. This thinking that they want to help. They love us so much, and they really want to do what's right, and they really want to contribute, and they just don't know how, right? And
it takes us more time to teach them.
Yes.
Right. And so I think there has to be some ownership on, it's like, I'll just do it myself. I'm That's guilty. Right. I'm so guilty of that when it comes to, like, I don't love cooking. But it's like when you've got kids and then all of a sudden they show up several times a day and they're like hungry, and then you have to like figure out what to feed them. And so finally I was like, okay, I'm just going to suck it up and feed these people. So I always was just really kind of utilitarian about it. Yes. And, but unfortunately in doing that, because I didn't like bring any joy to it.
Hmm.
I just wanted to get through it as quickly as possible.
Yeah.
So I wasn't including them. And then all of a sudden I've got a 16-year-old and he's like, God, I haven't, it's 2:00. He slept till whatever. And I'm like, have you eaten anything today? He's like, no, because he doesn't know how to make himself a freaking sandwich and I'm like, let me just make you something real quick. And it's like, and so then I'm over here going, how come you guys go off to college? Because I have 2 older ones. And you all of a sudden are cooking and feeding yourself and like,
Right.
and then you come home and it's all again, like y'all are toddlers and I'm in the kitchen, like feeding. I don't even like feeding people. And it's like, I created that because I didn't take the time to include them and show them this is the way we're going to do it. This is the way we're going to work as a team, as a pack.
Right. Work as a pack. I love this. It's so great. I have to tell you that my husband told me a couple nights ago, he said, yeah, he was like, I was like 30 and I didn't really know how to cook. And he started cooking when I was pregnant and I was too tired to cook. And I came home and I was like, I'm sorry, I'm too tired. So you're going to have to cook. And he like taught himself at the ripe old age of like 36 or something. So,
well, I mean, I would say, like, my husband's like, you totally know how to cook. I'm like, well, because for many years I had all the people showing up freaking hungry. So I had to figure it out. So I know.
Right.
I just told him this the other day. He goes, remember when I bought you for a birthday or something, lessons at that cooking school and you never used them? And I was like, what kind of a birthday present is that? Like,
it's so true, right? Is that for him or for you?
Right. He was like, you never used it. He goes, they were expensive and they went to waste. I was like, because I watched, I said, I think it was even before the Food Network. I used to watch, I think they had cooking shows on like HGTV way back when. I was like, I used to watch the cooking shows and that's how I learned how to do, that's the way I learned all the, different techniques or whatever. He's like, you watch those? I was like, yeah, where were you? Like, I was like researching and I was like, okay, I got to figure out how to do this cooking thing. So I'm just going to watch TV. I love laying in bed and watching TV. I can learn that way.
Life teaches you. Maria in the UK said that to me. Life teaches you. Life teaches you. It's the same with kids, right? You got to throw them out there. Life teaches them.
Well, I'll tell you, one of the most impactful stories was, I think it was Maria's daughter, when you were there and the girls were off from school and all of a sudden you like, tell that story. I love that story.
So this was like a turning point in my life. It was spring break and Maria has 3 girls. I think at the time they were like 4 to 12 and they were on spring break and they had stayed up late watching a shark movie. I don't know if I mentioned that in the book, but she found them all in the same hammock huddled together that night because they were like scared. And so they were sleeping in. She told me she was permitting them to sleep in. Otherwise they would be up helping her. But then around, it was like 10 or so, the oldest 12-year-old Angela gets up, walks past me and her mom. I knew her at that point, the girls, but not well. And we were chatting and she walks past us and just starts doing the dishes from breakfast, like right away. And I was just like, what is going on? Like, there's no chore chart. they don't get an allowance. And, nobody told her to do it. And I was really surprised. And Maria wasn't really surprised at all. She told me, she said, she's 12. She should know what needs to be done and she should know when to do it. And then she also said, which was really interesting, she said, it's not every day. So it's not like she's expecting this every day. There's none of this, like everybody has to do something every day. Right. And then I went over and I asked Anala, like, and really like, why did you do the dishes? And she told me because she loves helping her mom. And, I'm sure there's some elements to that, I'm sure, but it was genuine. It was, you could feel that she really genuinely enjoys and wants to help her family. And this is not exceptional in the sense that like there's studies on Maya communities and other indigenous communities in Mexico where they ask kids this and kids will say this. Kids will say, I help because, I'm part of a team. I want to help my family. My family feeds me. One of the kids said, like I'm a family member. I eat here. I sleep here. Like this is part of being a family member, So this sense of like you say, like we're part of a pack is very common in many communities around the world. And the parents, intentionally instill this idea in the kids. This isn't something that like, it's just like teaching kids to read or do math. There's an intentional process of instilling this idea and this value that I'm still learning. The book goes into a lot of it, but it's a really complex idea, right? To teach a kid this idea. And unfortunately, a lot of the things that we're taught in parenting books and blogs kind of are the opposite of this.
Yeah. Yeah.
And
say
I think
more about that. You say more about that.
Like, for instance, giving kids a chore chart seems like a great idea, right? Like, how many books tell you this? But like a lot of psychologists that study Maya parenting will tell you that actually goes against this idea, because it basically tells the kid, I'm only supposed to do this one thing on Mondays and this one thing on, right? And it's my job and it's my task and it's an individualistic goal, right? So one, you're like, basically giving a kid a pass on everything else, right? And so if you try to get them to do anything else, why would they do it, right? But two, again, it's the focus on the individual, right? Like the individual has a task and they accomplish it, and that's their job, right? Whereas this other approach is all the tasks are for everyone and they're shared goals, right? So instead of you go make your bed, we're going to all make each other's beds together. Instead of like you clean up, it's your turn to do the dishes tonight. We all do the dishes together every night. And we do the laundry together, then tasks become shared tasks, but they also become these social tasks, these social moments, where like, it's going to sound really hokey, but like cleaning up after dinner can be fun sometimes, because Rosy and I turn the music on and we kind of dance around, and it becomes, especially for little kids, this wonderful moment to be with your family, after being at school all day. So there's tons of things that we do that kind of focus on the individual and the individual accomplishments. And this disconnects the child from the pack mentality, like you're talking about. All the child-centered activities that we do, right? Birthday parties, Mandarin lessons, violin lessons, zoo trips, all these wonderful things that we're told to do for children does the opposite of what we're talking about, right? It tells them that their purpose in life are these parties and these child-centered activities, and kind of strips away from them that membership in the team. With Rosy, I saw a big difference when we stopped doing those things and focused more on these like family focused activities.
I wish I would have gotten that memo when my kids were little. Like my husband got that memo. He's like, I'm not going anymore. He was like, I'm not going to any more kid birthday parties. And it was actually a source of resentment with me. Like, he's like, I will be a co-parent on everything else, but I'm not going to kids' birthday parties anymore. I'm not spending my weekends doing that. And I was like,
good for him.
Yeah. And I made it really a negative. I was like, that's your, gross male privilege. Like,
right. I mean, and society accepts it way more from the father, right?
Right.
Than from the mom. There's no question about that. The guy is always.
But I was thinking about it wrong, because I was like, well, they're going to want to go. And so now it's going to all be on me, that I'm going to be the one that has to take them. So thanks a lot. Now it's going to all fall on me.
Right.
And he's like, they don't have to go. And so he actually got it. And I was like, that is so selfish. Of course they have to go. See, so I was thinking about it wrong, instead of realizing, if I really look back at all the years, and especially because two of my kids are highly sensitive for sure.
Yeah.
It was always overstimulating.
Oh my God. Same with Rosy. Oh, so bad.
Especially with my son. I had a pit in my stomach. Like, was he going to want to leave immediately? Was he going to have a meltdown? Was he going to ever warm up? Were all the other kids going to go and do the gymnastics thing, and he was just going to want to be with me? Was I going to have to go in there with him? So it was nerve-wracking. And, but I was just like, no, it's their birthday party. Of course they have to go. These are their classmates. And my husband was like, no, they don't. This is nonsense.
It's nonsense. I mean, I remember Rosy's third birthday party. We had this big thing with some friends. It was this massive thing. And it was at a park, thank God. Otherwise it would have been, even worse, but I looked over at her after the cake was done and everything, and she was just sitting there screaming, like literally like screaming and crying. And I was just like, this is not the point of this. And why are we doing this? And that was the end for me. I was like, no more of this. Like, we can have a couple of friends over, we can have a cake, but that is the end of it. And like, I don't know when this happened, because even I'm 45 and like, we had birthday parties, but they weren't so big. And like, there weren't so many too. Like, I felt like they were like 2 a year, you know, I don't know. We've become so far skewed to think, I think a lot of parents just, and I was like this, like, there's just this fear of like, how do you fill the time? Right. That I had. And it actually took like a year and a half or two to get rid of this fear of like, it's Saturday, what do I do with her? You know, and this is completely unnatural and weird. And like, you know, you don't have to fill the time. You just do what you want to do and figure out a way that she comes with you or she stays home with somebody else, you know, and like, it's your life and she's included in as much as she can. And, you know, you have to make some accommodations for them, but you kind of move on with your life. And that's how parents have done it for like 200,000 years.
Wow.
There's no doubt there were not birthday parties in zoos, you know, in Africa when we were all hunter-gatherers.
You know, the Inuit people in the Arctic, I think, are fascinating. And I had read something or listened to something about them, I don't know, maybe 5 years ago. And I actually created a tool based on something I had learned, and I call it the tall tale tool. And yeah, and it was, and what the tool really was, if I thought, because as I'm reverse engineering my process, I was thinking back to my youngest child who went through that phase that I think a lot of kids go through, where they don't want you to brush their teeth. They don't want to brush their teeth. They don't want you to brush their teeth. They still need assistance and whatever. And so I used to go on a hunt for sugar bugs.
This is good.
Yeah. And so I'd be like, okay, open up really big. And he'd like open his mouth as big as, I was like, oh my, I was like, you had some cookies today. I see a little black one lurking in it.
So good.
So I would be like, but oh my, there's a purple one. Wait, I've never seen an aqua one. Hold on, let me get him. He's right over. So I'd be on this and he'd like be opening it. He's so cooperative. And I really based it on how they're like, you know, it's kind of like, it's just such emotional intelligence that has been around since ancient times, which is like, know your audience. Like,
yes,
right.
Yes.
Like speak to your audience. Like if you were right now having a conversation with an academic audience, I'm sure there would be different language being used, or, you know, like, you know, your audience. If I'm giving my talk that I give to, like, I gave it recently, and the audience was very heavy with men and like you know, like CEO businessmen. Well, guess what? I kept using a lot of examples of, you know, employees and in business and whatever, because you have to know your audience. So, I love the part in the book where you talk about that. And I would love for you just to even speak more to what you learned from them.
You mean in terms of storytelling?
Yeah.
So if you look, if this probably of all the things in the book, this is probably the most universal practice. Like, I'm Irish, in the stories in Ireland are almost like so similar to the stories in the Arctic. And like, you can find a water story, like every culture, like, and there's a big argument to be made that young children up until about 6 or 7 really are evolved. Their brains evolved to learn through story. Like, that's, some scientists actually think that this is what makes us human, that the way we can cooperate with each other is through story. So like, if I'm hunting you know, when we were all hunter gatherers, you know, we did cooperative hunting, and it's one of the things that kept us humans alive. And to do that, you had to tell each other stories. So like, if I'm hunting, I'll tell you, like, go down to the river, turn right, I'll meet you over there, you know, and that's like a story. That's the plot. That's like has the elements of a story. And so storytelling is this deep, deep human thing. And you'll find everywhere stories to teach children how to be safe outside. So the Inuit have a water monster, Kalupaluk, the Irish have a water horse. And basically is like, if you go too close to the water, the ocean, which will kill children, this Calypso monster will come and put you on his back and then take you down into the water. But they have all these amazing, amazing stories. And some of them are quite scary. And the Irish, I learned, had all these stories for the marshes or the swamps, because the land would turn into water and suck children up. And so they taught children about fairies in the forest and monsters and all this stuff. But it is just the best way to get a young child to do what you want them to do. And to cooperate. And it turns these moments that are incredibly stressful, like brushing teeth, or I couldn't get Rosy to change her dress. She wore the same dress for like 3 weeks at one point, and it was just this, we were nagging, we were arguing. And then I finally said to her, she's afraid of spiders. I got close to her and I whispered her in her ears, Rosy, if you don't change that dress, spiders are going to come and crawl all over it. And like, she like looked at me like this, like with big eyes, and just like took the dress off and like threw it in the hamper. I mean, we had spent like days trying to get her to take this dress off. And it was incredible. It was just like, boom. And it's like, you're speaking their language. It's like you were talking about before, like, we put the adult mind on them. And this is like, the child's mind is a story, right? That's how they think. That's how they learn. And I say, one of the dads actually told me, like, I'd much rather my kid be afraid of some monster in the forest than afraid of me, right? With anger and threats and punishments, right? And so it's kind of also a way of like teaching the child so that it's not coming from you, it's coming from kind of the world, right? And it's like I say in the book, I feel like storytelling is a way of disciplining and teaching that builds communication instead of like building walls and really pitting the child against the parent. Because, oh my God, Rosy loves the story. So Rosy's 6 now, and she kind of knows all the stories are fake now and like they're not real, but she still loves them. We were having this whole monster conversation on the way home from school yesterday about like the screaming monster, the selfish monster, the lazy monster, like all of these very complex ideas, right? But she understands through these stories. And it's just been, the stories were a big turning point in our lives, because they like decreased so much conflict in our house, like so much.
Well, and I like the playfulness of it. It's like, it doesn't have to be so freaking serious all the time.
Exactly. It's like, it's just their teeth, or it's just some pink dress. Right?
Yeah. Like it doesn't have to be all serious. And I feel like that's when you were talking about like the parenting books and the, now I have to figure out how to do a chore chart. Like, I think we had a wheel when I was at camp in my bunk, but like, that's not my thing. Like what? And so it's like, it's giving you all like, now I have to like be this crafty person, and I have to.
And it's super like complex. Like even the Maya parents, you tell them about a chore chart, they're like, you have to do all that to get a child to like clean up after dinner? No, you don't need to do all that.
Right.
You just need to like do it with them. Like, like,
and have fun and like, and bond and connect. And now all of a sudden they associate a positive memory with, and with being helpful. And then you're like, gosh, we got this done in half the time that it would have taken me without you.
Yeah,
we're
exactly.
awesome.
And they learn fast. Yeah. People always say like, it takes me more time when they're with me. And it's like, it's true. At the beginning it does, but they learn way faster than you, it's like, it will save you time very quickly.
Well, they learn way faster. It's also amazing. Like I'll say to my kids something and they're like, yeah, I got it. And I'm like, really? I don't need to repeat it 4 times. And they're like, it's almost like they're saying like, no, my brain is young. It doesn't have all the cobwebs on it. Like you said it, I was actually engaged and listening. You don't have to repeat it 4 times.
Oh, that is such good. I mean, that is like such a big difference in us in so many cultures, is that parents will just say something once and that's it. If the kid doesn't do it right away, they wait like 10, 15 minutes and then maybe repeat it. And sometimes they just don't even repeat it. It's like, it's like, go get your shoes. And that's it.
Well, okay. So I asked my group, I said, okay, I will ask Michaeleen a few questions, because as I said, we're all obsessed with your book. So I want to ask a few of the questions that people submitted.
Okay.
And before we get there, I do want to ask one thing about the shift in you. Okay.
Yeah.
So you went, and I love all the stories about, how you kind of realize like in all these other cultures, the parenting doesn't just fall on the mom or the
Yeah.
mom and the dad,
Huge.
right? And so there's this whole support network. And I think that parenting has, in our modern world or here in America, I think in the mainstream culture, it can be a lonely endeavor. Like it can,
Hugely.
right? It can feel
Oh,
so lonely, and it can feel unsafe emotionally to like really tell people what's going on behind the curtains of your home, because it seems like that's not going on in their house, or at least their pictures on social media tell you
right.
that they've just got their shit together, and it just makes you feel terrible and like a failure. So and then you're worried that maybe if you tell somebody what's really going on, what if they judge your kid, and what if they then
Right.
don't want
And they
their
can
kid?
be mean. The parents are
Yeah.
mean to each other. Like,
Right. They'll judge you. They'll judge your kid. What if they then go and spread rumors, and then other parents hear that your kid's a nightmare, and then they're not going to let their kid play with your kid. So you're like, okay, well, I better just keep it to myself. And
right.
so it seems like you went to and tell me if I'm wrong, but it seems like a lot of the shift within you was going and having this sort of circle of sisterhood embrace you.
I haven't thought of that like that, but it's right. Like having this support, right, from these other women and Thai, the men in Tanzania. Yeah, absolutely. It's really interesting because I think parents are judgmental everywhere, but not like here. There is not this, and it comes back to that idea that children are expected to be hellions, right? They're expected to misbehave. They're these illogical, irrational creatures. So it's not the parents' fault. Like it's not on the parents, right? And I think that shifts the mentality a lot. But then again, it goes also back to what are we teaching? Are we teaching kids to be these little individual islands with individual accomplishments? That's kind of how the parents treat each other, right? Or are we teaching kids to work together and support each other? And that's how the parents treat each other in these other cultures,
Well,
right?
and I guess the thing that I kind of also I want to leave the listeners with is I feel like, especially being a mom, because in America, in most families that I have known or experienced, it seems like a lot of the child care still does fall, on the mom more,
Absolutely.
right? More than the dad. And if we're feeling isolated and alone and worried about being judged, or our kids being judged, so we might as well just keep it quiet and grin and bear it, really through our gritted teeth, deal with
Right.
whatever's going on. It's like it feels like it's got patriarchal roots,
It does.
where
Absolutely.
and I'm like, I think this is kind of all coming together. I've been very obsessed with this. Have you seen Mrs. America on Hulu, the series? I think it was on FX.
Yes.
Yeah. Have you watched
Yes.
it?
Yes.
Okay. So I'm obsessed with it. I think I'm on episode 7. And did you like it?
Yeah, for sure.
Yeah. So I've just been watching it and just kind of like studying, it's really interesting. I think the lens that these docudramas, I think they're so interesting in teaching history, because it's interesting to see. It's really, for anybody that doesn't know, it's all about like the rise of the feminist movement. And I love the lens of looking at the Stop ERA movement as
Right.
well.
Phyllis Schlafly, right?
Yes. And it's just a star-studded cast. It's really fun to watch. But I've been thinking, here it's like that the patriarchal roots, that we can control society if we control the women. And there's strength in numbers, there's strength in packs. So if within our culture, the women aren't allowed to really band together in sisterhood.
Yes.
right? So then it's like, nothing's really going to change. We're still, and so there's all this just kind of, it's almost like there's been so much masculine leadership and the feminine leadership that only really, like, I think, not only women, because lots of men have, it's like we all have feminine and masculine
Right,
qualities,
right, right.
but it seems like you went to these ancient cultures and the women showed up with that sort of divine feminine leadership, and
Oh
they
yeah.
embraced you, and they modeled that for you, and they taught you how to tap into that within yourself.
Yeah, I think I think what you just said is like incredible. I think you're absolutely right. By dividing women, the power structure stays, right, with the men, right? It's a way of perpetuating the power structure by pitting women against each other. I
Yeah.
absolutely, and nowhere more fierce is in the parenting realm, right? Because it is
Right.
like, and you're absolutely like, right. I mean, I just think back to when we were like the second day in the Arctic. I put this in the story, and this mom ran out of her house. And she said to us, she said to me, she said, I see you here with your daughter by yourself.
I love
And you
this
can't
part.
be here by yourself with your daughter. You need help. You need a break. I will take her for you. And like, and I was just like, wow, right? Like, and then they all kind of, I didn't put this in the book, but they all kind of, three of them came together and had this like intervention when they were like, we're going to take Rosy for the afternoon. Michaeleen needs a break. And like, they got her finally to go with them. And, but it was, you're right. It's this incredible
But I love
women
what they said
together.
to you, like, you don't just need a break. She needs a break from you.
Yes, yes. This is what Sally said one day. She's like, they get tired, she gets tired of you just as much as you're tired of her. And that is so right, right? Like, it's not just about me. Like Sally said, like, that's why she's so grumpy. She needs a break from you.
I loved that part. And I was like, such a good point,
Yeah. Yeah. We
Yeah.
think of like outsourcing our childcare is so poo-pooed in our, like, we think it's not the idea or hurting. I mean, there's still even like people that like, a lot of people think this, that when you outsource it and other people take care of your kids, you're somehow doing something wrong. When in fact, like data say that kids need that, and
Yeah.
kids do better when they're, off with another family, off with the other kids, off with the grandma, like, like, so I'm always encouraging Rosy, like every moment, go with other people. Like that's where they stretch their wings. And they also get this like support, right? They feel like, okay, if something happens to mom and dad, they know that like, I've got this, people have got my back, and I feel this safety net, so.
Well, I also think, that when they go off with other people, I think that it teaches them not, I think it kind of is like the opposite of codependency,
Yeah,
right?
for sure. Absolutely.
Like we can love each other the most, and we can come back together and be so happy to be together. And we don't have to be together every single second. It's actually not healthy. We need to all have, like, we have our lives together and we have our lives separately.
Yeah.
And yeah, I think it's so healthy.
Yeah. And for the parents too, right? Because then it's kind of like having, I call them like the auntie network. And it's like having that, it's like, okay, if I need, something comes up or we need something really quick, we've got this, someone has my back. And like, there's studies that show that that's more important in life, like for your health, than like not smoking, than eating right, is just feeling like if something goes wrong, I have support. I have somebody has my back. And again, we're teaching the kid the same thing, right? That like how to create these strong relationships and reach out and get help and give help. And yeah, this nuclear family thing is crazy. And like I say, it hasn't been around very long, not time tested, and really not the way kids are designed to be raised. But you don't need a village. You just really need like one or two other families, or, one or two really strong people in your life, right? Besides the nuclear family, you just need one or two. It makes a huge difference.
I think that's what a lot of the members in my group said, like, that sounds like heaven on earth. How do we do that? How do we create that? It feels so elusive because they don't even, and I think it might, geographically, it might it might depend on where you live. I mean, I always felt like that. Like we went one summer and we rented a house for a month in Boulder, Colorado.
Mm.
And me and my youngest son, at the end of that month, I said, I feel like if we had lived here, if you guys had been raised here, we would have found,
Right.
things would be different,
Right.
things would be
Right.
different. And we live in Houston, we live in a big city, it's just, it just is a different culture.
It's harder. It's harder. But in San Francisco, so we live in Texas now too, we moved, but in San Francisco, it is harder. There's no doubt it's harder, but I do think you can do it. I think for me, it boiled down to being very selective. Instead of like, I really pruned back. The Inuit moms taught me this too. Like I really pruned back. Like if a friendship, it's not about abundance of a friendships. It really is about like having people that share your thoughts on kids and really share the desire to build this network. And really, so we ended up really just with 2 families that we shared the childcare pickup and the dinners and the weekends. And so it was very small, but very like robust and strong connection. And it helped a lot. It helped a huge amount.
Yeah, I think I have somebody who works with me, a coworker who lives in San Francisco, and she has that there. So I know it's not just a big city thing. Of course, in my brain, I'm like, yeah, but it's California, and people.
Well, now we're in Alpine, Texas, like super rural, and it's a lot easier here. I mean, Rosy can just walk around.
That's so awesome.
So it's, I do see that the city is harder. There's no doubt. But I think it's doable. And just one extra person that really cares for the child and really cares for you is there's data that showed it makes a huge difference in a child's like mental health growing as they grow up. Just one person, like
just one other family. Yeah. I mean, we have that. And it just kind of haphazardly happened, but it's interesting because it's like, everyone, it just works together,
Right. It's kind of like, it's easy, right? That's what I was like in San Francisco. That's kind of what happened. I was like, okay, the ones that I have to work a lot for, I'm just gonna like let them fall off, and really invest the time and the energy to the ones that feel easy and I'm not forcing things. And, but I do feel like I have to make the conscious effort to value it and put the time in, right? Like, okay, I'm not going to like do this extra thing at work because, we've got this, I want to help with the other family's kids, and like, really kind of prioritizing it makes a big difference. But it brings so much joy, right? It brings so much joy to help each other. To Rosy, it brings joy. To me, it brings joy. Like it just feels good, right? To help each other.
And it gives everyone a break from each other too.
Yeah,
right.
Exactly. Right. And I enjoy the relationship with the other kids too, right? Like really getting to know them. And it's what we really need. And it's interesting because in those little communities in the book, the families are the same. They don't have this like massive network of friends. They have like 1 or 2 families that they're sometimes related, sometimes not, that they're really close to. And it's, even though they live in this really small place, right? But the moms in Tanzania, it's just incredible how much time they spend together. So I describe it a little bit in the book, but just every day, like 8 moms just spend the entire day together. Like from basically sun up fire to like sundown fire. They're like with each other, chatting, socializing, foraging, like just, and it just struck me as like, wow, this is an enormous amount of socializing, and what that must do to them. Like they must never feel like alone, and isolated. And
yeah, it's almost like, I mean, it's like their version of a kibbutz.
And it's like, okay, I'm never going to get to that level, but like I can add a little bit more of that and really value it and see the value of it and the importance of it,
Yeah, I think it sounds heavenly. Okay, let me get to the
questions.
Okay, I know. I'm so fascinated with everything that you learned from all, like I could just listen to stories forever. Aaron says, my question is related to our post-pandemic times. From your travels in the villages, what have you changed in terms of your rituals and your habits? And how has your village families adapted? I don't know exactly what that means.
To the pandemic. That's like the
yeah. Yeah.
I don't know a lot about, I mean, okay, I think the Inuit town was really spared. It was incredible. Like they were spared because they were so isolated physically, they could block off, and they've been doing great. I think the village in I don't know about the Tanzania village. Actually, this is about all of them. They've all done really well. Both the Inuit and the Tanzania communities were really isolated physically, and so they could just kind of block it off. And the last I heard from the Maya village, that they were doing well, that the elderly people got vaccinated, and the Mexican government did a good job of, I think, vaccinating some of the rural communities. And so I think they've done well. So, I mean, the routines changed enormously. I mean, the big thing is like, it took about 6 months, I'd say, to do this, but I just got rid of really all child-centered activities that I didn't want to do. So sometimes I take Rosy to this kid farm, because I like seeing the animals, but no birthday parties, unless I like the parents and I want to be with the parents, no zoos, none of this stuff. The weekends are like, I do what I want to do and I need to do. And I figure out a way that Rosy can join me. And if she can't join me, then I find somebody to watch her, or, find something else for her to do. But most of the time she can join me, and we figure out ways. And the same thing with after school. We do nothing. Like we come home. Actually, now we all come home and we all garden. We've been like making this massive garden in our yard. And
it's so cool.
But it's like, I just do my stuff. And, like Thanksgiving, I was solo parenting for like 3 months in the winter, and I still just did my stuff. Like over the Thanksgiving break, I had to work, and Rosy just sat there and did her stuff while I was working. And it's not very exciting work. I mean, sometimes it is, but most of the time it's me typing on the computer. And that really changed that perspective of like what the kid needs and what's really good for her. And what's good for her is to just be with me and join me.
And she's welcome. Like
she is totally welcomed. Oh, exactly. It's not just like forced. It's like, I like her company.
Yeah.
It sounds crazy,
right. Because you know what? Because you don't have to change. Like you're like, I have a job. Like I have to get some work done, and you are more than welcome to be here with me.
That's right.
I think that's a beautiful thing, right? Like,
right. It's this coexistence, right? It's not me sitting there like teaching her and talking to her in this really intense interaction. No, it's just us doing our thing. A lot of times she's coloring, and if she wants to go outside, she can ride her bike outside. Like we have the space, and like, she can be there, she can not be there. And we've trained her. Like I've trained her so that she can take care of herself in this environment.
Yeah. No, because I know people are like, okay, but how do I get there? And what I want y'all to see is where you are now. If you're like, how on earth, like my kid would, I know what you're saying, what you're thinking, listener. My kid would never.
Right.
Every second it's, I'm bored and yada, yada, yada. And so what Michaeleen just said is she trained her, and that's loaded, because it's, we can know that, but then the reality of actually doing that.
Yeah.
Right. It takes a lot of confidence in showing up and knowing, like, if your child has been trained to be, to live in a kid-centric family, and now all of a sudden you're changing the rules, just know that when you're changing the rules, it's going to be, it's going to get terrible for a sec.
Yeah.
Right. Like it's going to take a minute. And if you can adopt like what the what all the different indigenous women taught you, it's just like, of course they're going to lose their minds when
Right.
when they have to
Right.
experience boredom and you've been entertaining them every second. Of course. Like, well, doesn't that make perfect sense?
Right. Cause I
Right.
mean, we're the same way, right? Like when we can't text on our phone, right?
Right.
We get upset and tense, right? And it's the same feeling they're having. The dopamine isn't there. So they're like, they got to come off that dopamine.
They got to detox.
That's
right.
Right. That's right.
They got to detox for a minute.
Exactly right.
Right. So I just want people to kind of like just be inspired and see themselves. Like, it was just 3 years ago that you that you were like, I'm sort of dreading the day. And now you're like, and my child's welcome everywhere with me. And I garden, I work, I'm not going to birthday parties. I don't have to like go to one of those terrible, children's museum or whatever it is.
Oh my God.
No, none of that. Like, I just get my stuff done and it's wonderful. My kid can be with me coloring and like, it's great.
Yeah. And right? I mean, she says to me sometimes like, I'm bored. I don't know what to do. I mean, it's not every second. I mean, there was one day, like she was doing it for like 10 hours. And of course there's like moments where she's angsty, but like, so am I, and we just deal with it and like, and it moves past it. But you're right. I mean, I've written about this. I think it took when the pandemic hit and she had to sit with me because there was nothing we could do. And I was solo parenting then too. She was mad for like a week. Oh my God. She was pissed.
Right.
She was 4 and she was like throwing furniture and like, it was terrible, but it passed literally like a week. And we did it in little chunks too. Like that's another really like big piece of the book is this idea that go in steps, right? Like if you need to, like you rarely need to rip the Band-Aid off with kids, right? You can like, so we would do like 20 minutes. Okay, I'm going to work 20 minutes and then we'll go walk outside or I'll go read outside, and then we worked up to an hour. And then, over the course of a week, we worked up to like a couple hours, and it was
not a lot of time. I mean, that's what I'm saying is
they learn fast.
Yes.
They learn fast.
Right.
But you can't give in.
Right. So you had to be confident. And I think it was the circle of sisterhood that was like,
oh yeah, for sure.
Right. Like let us really tell you. And you're like, okay, well, the proof's in the pudding. I'm seeing your 12-year-old just show up and do the dishes because she loves being helpful.
Right.
All right. I believe you. Bring it, keep bringing, all the advice and guidance. And so you were obviously a willing student and coachable. And I just want everyone else.
Yeah, I'm ready for more.
I want everyone to realize there is hope. Okay. I'm just going to get to one more.
Okay. You can email me them. And then if you want, I can.
Oh, okay, great. Okay. I'm going to, this other one, because this came up a lot for people. It said, you touch a little bit on technology. I think that you said that it's not really an issue in some of the other cultures that have it. The kids just don't get it until they can afford to buy it themselves and they manage it themselves. I wonder if that's still your take. Oh, she goes, I wonder if that's still her take as her daughter is getting older.
Oh, that's a great question. So the Maya village is they don't have it. I mean, they all have TVs in their home, but that's like the family TV, but they don't have phones or anything if they can't buy it and pay for the plans and everything. So most of the kids get a phone like 14, 15, 16 when they start to work, work in a house, take care of kids, babysit. So yes, that is still my take as Rosy age 6. Rosy is not going to get a phone until Rosy pays for the phone. I'll let you know how that goes, but that is the plan. And I really respect that idea because I think for lots of reasons. Now that in the Arctic, the kids had tons of video games, no phones, too expensive. I think it's the same thing but tons of video games and the kids play tons of video games. And I've thought a lot about this. The parent didn't police it. There wasn't this like time limits and basically any item that caused conflict in a lot of those homes, they would get rid of. And they even told me this, like, we don't argue over property. We don't argue over things, which is so interesting in itself. But interestingly, the kids also played outside 6-7 hours a day. So they would be on the video games. This is the summer and they weren't at school. They'd be on the video games 4 or 5 hours a day, but they would also be outside like enormous amounts of time. And I think I've been thinking a lot about this. And I think it's because the parents were outside so much too. Right. And so the parents weren't on their device the whole day, all day. They were like out fishing, hunting, collecting berries, out on the water. Like the parents had these big lives outside and the kids just kind of did too. And I think that helped balance out a lot of the video gaming, but they did a lot of video gaming. And like the grandma in the book, Maria, she came back from like a 7-day, 10-day hunting trip. And she got back and she was like, oh my God, I have so much CSI I have to catch up on. And I think that like showed the mixture of it. It was like, I just spent 7 days camping outside. But I got to sit here and watch CSI for like 4 hours, So
I love that.
Yeah, it was a big mix. And I'm really inspired by that because it's like, it doesn't have to be all or one.
Right.
But I think the parents have to kind of also show the kid there's a life outside, right? There's all this fun stuff to do outside. And we have this big relationship with nature. And we also watch TV.
Right.
And play video games.
Right. No, that's a great point. Okay. Well, this may end up being a 2-parter because we went. So thank you.
Sorry for being so.
No, I was about to say, thank you for being so generous with your time. I mean,
of course.
So,
I want to write something on the pack. So I will contact you because I want to make sure I credit everything I love that.
Good. Yes, absolutely. Contact me. And for everyone, which is all of you who are going to go and get this, I'm calling it required reading for every parent. It came back. Has it come out in paperback yet?
Yes, it just came out like last month. So there's a paperback version.
So hunt, gather, parent. And even though I do read a lot of books on my Kindle, I do also listen to a lot of books on Audible. I invite everyone to buy the actual physical copy of this book, because you're going to want to be able to refer to it easily. You're going to I'm telling you, mine is all marked up. You're going to want to take notes and highlight, and you will be referring back to this again and again, and you'll be teaching other people about it. So you're going to want to sound educated, and you're going to just want it as an easy reference. So I think the physical copy is definitely worth getting.
Oh, when I first wrote the Inuit part, when I would get really angry at Rosy, I would go back and read it to calm myself down and recenter myself. So I even read parts of it over and over again because it's a lot, it's a lot to take in.
Well, the story, I mean, there's so much for us. The minute we get to remember storytelling is how they learn. And then all of a sudden that taps into the creative part of, so it's like, okay, so now I have to access the creative part of my brain. Oh, I can't stay in this angry limbic.
That's true.
And so it's
true.
It might just be an amazing tool. Even you might've been using that tool as a way to just quickly kind of get yourself out of that triggered moment.
Yeah. Move from, like you say, the reactive brain to the creative brain.
Yeah.
I hadn't thought of it like that. That's so true.
Yeah. That's so cool.
Which is what we want them to do, right? Eventually.
And they learn by what we model. So
right, exactly.
There you go. Okay. Much fun. So much fun. All right. Thanks for listening, guys.
Thank you so much, guys.
Okay. Thanks for listening today, guys. I hope you picked up some tips, tools, maybe some baby steps for creating more balance and boundaries in your life. And I just wanted to let you know, if you want to continue moving the needle forward in creating this for yourself, having a happier household, I want you to go to my website and check out mastermindparenting.com. We have 3 beginning programs. And if you need some accountability and more support, then please look for the one that would be a good fit for you. And as always, we're on all the social channels under Mastermind Parenting. On Instagram, it's mastermind_parenting. And, periodically I do pop up on different Instagram lives, Facebook lives, where I give you teaching and coaching. And I love engaging with you live to help you help your strong-willed kids so that they can feel better, because when they feel better, they do better. And I I love, love, love getting to know you guys. So thanks for listening. If you like this podcast, please don't forget to subscribe, rate, and review. Super, super appreciative.